have to take a little notch out of this thing to be able to make the new flywheel weight fit. So the stator and pickup coil have to come out, get everything clean, mark it, and cut out what I don't need. Make sure everything's clean and set it off to the side. So I need to take out 14 millimeters and 7 millimeters deep. Okay, that's marked. Guess we'll assume the KTM put that material there for no reason, because that seems like something they do, right? Holding my fingers on the blade to protect the case here. I want to screw up the gasket seal. So there we go. Cut the piece out, and I don't know if you can see that, but it doesn't look terribly straight to me, so I am still going to have to file it out. Double check the depth at this end. Yep, not quite 7 millimeter, so gotta grab a file and get the rest of that material out of there. Got a couple files. I think I'll use the broken one since it's smaller. Okay, that should be good. I'm gonna spray this down with some brake cleaner to get rid of all those little filings. Hopefully that'll flush everything out real nice. And if not, I'll have to use more acetone. There we go. Brake cleaner works pretty well. I did miss some spots though. And now that I'm looking at it without all the filings in there, I'm actually going to go in and clean up the burrs on that a little bit too. No sense in having little sharp edges and bits of metal hanging on by a thread just so that they can come loose and end up in my oil. So file that down, clean everything again, and then I get to wait for several more hours until I can go on to the next step. And now we wait. It is 9 o'clock, which means it's been 24 hours since I did the epoxy. And the instructions say to throw this guy in the oven, into a cold oven, and then increase the heat to 250 and bake it for 2 hours. I'm going to assume that that's 2 hours from when the temperature hits 250, and then turn off the oven and allow it to slowly return to room temperature, so leave it in the oven and let it cool off. Since it's already 9 o'clock, it has to get up to temperature, and then it has to cool down slowly. I am definitely not going to be finishing this job tonight. I guess I'll be waking up early tomorrow morning and hopefully getting everything all put together and maybe even be able to ride it and test it out. So the oven's set to 250 and it'll start heating up soon. In the meantime, I wait. Alright, it has been more than 36 hours since I started this job, which is frustrating, but that's just how things go. This thing is out of the oven. It has been cured, and everything looks good. Except for that little bit right there. Let's get this thing back on there. Well, that's easy. Where's my starter gear? There's cardboard there. God damn. Okay. Let's just try that again. Now we can put this thing back on, and hopefully it's not going to go anywhere. Make sure it's clean. You know what? Let's just double check this. Yeah, it spins. There's no clearance issues. Put that in there. There's the rest of the bolts. Now, since they're all yellow, I'm going to assume that it doesn't matter which way these go. Because if it mattered, they should be a different color. Okay, there we go. It is installed. The wiring is plugged back in. Now I'll put some oil in it. Put the bike back together, put the skid plate back on, tighten my chain, and go out for a ride. Test this thing out. I just got back from about an hour of riding the bike after putting on the new Flywheel Weight, and I did notice some differences for sure. It does seem like the bike can chug along at lower RPMs without stalling. I tested it out on some hills. I just let it idle up a slight incline and it managed to pull that off, whereas before it would have instantly stalled. And I tried a couple of hills without any clutch at all, and it seemed to do fairly well. The other thing I noticed is it definitely doesn't slam into the 14,000 RPM rev limiter like it used to. It hits it, but it used to hit it hard and just slam into it and bounce off the rev limiter like crazy. Now it's a lot less aggressive when it hits the rev limiter. It does seem to wind up just a bit slower than it used to, which makes sense. It's got more rotating mass now, so it's going to take more work for that to get moving quickly. The changes up and down on the rotating mass will be a little bit slower. with that, it seems like it does have slightly better traction. That could just be the simple fact that I don't have to have the RPM up as high to keep it from stalling, so the wheels aren't trying to spin as fast. It still moves good. It launches well. It takes off quite well. Doesn't hit the RPM limit as quickly as it used to, but I think it might actually be putting more power down better. It doesn't seem to spin very much at all now. Like, just straight line, hammer on the throttle type riding. It seems like it hooks up a little bit more than it did before, rather than just spinning the wheel. Still stalled the bike a few times while I was out riding, but not really a big deal. Like, a couple of times I was just in the wrong gear, and a couple of times I was trying to stall it and see what it would take, and I was surprised at how long it took for it to stall. So that's pretty good. Is it a total game changer that I was hoping for? I have no idea yet. I guess we'll have to wait until race season starts, which is in a couple months, and then if I find in those situations that the bike is working a lot better for me and I find the racing even easier, then I would say that it's been a good move. So far, the differences I've noticed aren't huge. It tractors up hills a little bit better than it did before. It requires a little less clutch work than it used to. And in a couple of spots, I think I was actually in a higher gear than I would normally be to go through a certain section. Now that could be that I was going a little faster than I would normally go through there, or it could be that it's just able to pull from the lower RPM in the higher gear, so I didn't need to shift down. Can't really say for sure which one of those two things it was. Now I guess the question is, was it worth it? And I still don't know. It's different, but not terribly different, and I guess that's kind of the point of these things. You don't want to drastically change the way the bike behaves, because it's a pretty good bike to begin with. Making drastic changes to it does seem like that might be a bad move. It still stalls, but again, generally it's my fault when it stalls. If I was riding better, it wouldn't stall. If I was using the clutch properly and not being lazy, then it wouldn't stall. Just make little mistakes and it can stall for sure. It's a motorcycle, they can do that. It does seem like it works well, but I thought it worked well before too. I didn't really have a lot of complaints about the bike. I just would occasionally end up in situations where I was stalling and I was getting frustrated, and I got really used to keeping the RPM up and slipping the clutch a lot. Maybe I'm not going to have to do that anymore, but again, after an hour ride, I'm not going to make massive changes to my riding style on a bike that I've got 104 hours into. I've gotten pretty used to how I ride that bike already, so to think that it's just going to change completely after 1 hour is kind of silly. So, what you should consider if you're thinking of doing this, if you have to use an epoxy style flywheel weight for your bike, it will add to the rotating mass. It will make it lug down a little bit better. Maybe a heavier weight would have made a bigger difference, but then it would probably take even longer to rev up. So the 8-ounce weight is probably a good happy medium. I'm losing a little bit of top end, or at least I'm losing a little bit of the aggressive arrival at the top end, but I'm gaining a bit more in the trackability at the bottom end of the power. If you're thinking of doing this on your own, this job for me was about 40 hours from start to finish. A lot of that was just waiting for the epoxy to set and cure. So 24 hours of just sitting around waiting then more than 2 hours in the oven, and then of course dealing with things like nighttime. I'm not going to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to tinker with a bike that I won't be able to ride for a few more hours anyway. So for me, it was about 40 hours, probably realistically about 3 hours worth of actual work. And to do it, the only real specialty tool you need is the flywheel puller. And if you don't already have a torque wrench, you're going to need one of those, probably an impact driver too, just to get things apart. So my cost on this was about $200 because I didn't already have a flywheel puller for this bike. If I was going to pay someone to do the work, that would be sketchy, because I don't know how long a real mechanic would take to do this and how much you'd get billed for, but it's a long process, and I did not care for my bike having the engine open for as long as it was. We'll see exactly what kind of a difference it makes when the races start up again. So far I'm not angry. It has made some difference, but I will really have to put it through the paces during races, and I guess just chasing friends. That would be better than riding alone as far as testing it out goes. But for today, I noticed some changes. Not sure it's a serious game changer yet. I will post up the video of my test ride. I tried to talk about what I was noticing, what I was feeling, but I didn't have a separate microphone with me, so just whatever the helmet cam picked up is what's going to be there. Hopefully the audio on it's pretty good. I did slow down to try and have less engine noise and everything else when I was trying to talk. So you'll be able to see that, and other than that, gotta wait for the race season. Find out just how much of a difference this really did make.